The dust cloud on the horizon grew larger as Benjamin Wright rode his tired horse toward Shoshone City, Wyoming, with 5 sets of eyes watching from the wagon behind him, each belonging to a daughter who looked to him for everything a mother and father should provide. It was the spring of 1876, and Benjamin had been without his beloved wife Sarah for 3 years now, taken by fever when their youngest was barely 2 years old. The ranch they had built together near the Medicine Bow Mountains had been his life, but after Sarah died, every fence post and every sunrise reminded him of what he had lost. So he sold it all and decided to start fresh in Shoshone City, where he heard there was good land and opportunity for a man willing to work hard. His daughters ranged from 5 to 18 years old. Mary, the eldest at 18, sat beside him on the wagon bench, her long brown hair tied back with a simple ribbon. She had taken on so much responsibility after Sarah passed, becoming a second mother to her sisters whether she wanted to or not. Behind them in the wagon bed, 16-year-old Ruth read quietly from a worn book of poetry, while 14-year-old Grace braided 13-year-old Hannah's hair. Little Emma, just 5 years old, clutched a rag doll and hummed a tune their mother used to sing. Benjamin glanced back at them and felt his chest tighten. He had done his best, but he knew it was not enough. A man could only do so much when it came to raising girls. He could teach them to ride and rope, to shoot straight and work hard, but there were things they needed that he simply could not provide. Mary had tried to fill that role, bless her heart, but she was just a girl herself when Sarah died. The town emerged from the dusty plain like a promise. Wooden buildings lined a wide main street, and Benjamin could see a general store, a saloon, a church with a white steeple, and what looked like a schoolhouse at the far end. His heart lifted slightly at the sight of that school. His girls needed education, especially the younger ones. Mary and Ruth had received decent schooling before Sarah died, but Grace and Hannah had missed too much, and Emma had never set foot in a classroom. They rode down the main street slowly, drawing curious looks from the townspeople. Benjamin kept his eyes forward, but he could feel the weight of their stares. A man alone with 5 daughters was unusual enough to warrant attention anywhere, and in a small town like this, they would be the subject of gossip before sunset. He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the general store, setting the brake and climbing down. His boots hit the wooden planks of the sidewalk with a solid thud, and he turned to help Emma down from the wagon. "Mary, keep an eye on your sisters. I am going to speak with the storekeeper about supplies and where we might find lodging for the night." "Yes, Papa," Mary said, though her voice carried the weariness of someone who had heard those words 1,000 times before. Inside the store, a portly man with spectacles looked up from behind the counter. "Good afternoon. New to town, just arrived. Name is Benjamin Wright. I am looking to settle here, maybe find some land to ranch." The storekeeper extended his hand. "Harold Mills, welcome to Shoshone City. There is land available east of town, near the river. Good grazing land. You will want to speak with Mr. Patterson at the land office, just 2 doors down. Much obliged. I also need to find a place for my family to stay while I get things sorted. You have family with you?" Harold asked, craning his neck to look out the window at the wagon. "5 daughters. Lost my wife 3 years back." Harold's expression shifted to something between sympathy and surprise. 5 daughters. Well now, that is quite a responsibility for a man on his own. There is a boarding house on Maple Street, run by Mrs. Henderson. Clean rooms and good meals. Tell her I sent you." Benjamin purchased some basic supplies and got directions to the boarding house. As he loaded the goods into the wagon, he noticed a woman standing outside the schoolhouse, sweeping the front steps. She wore a simple blue dress and had her auburn hair pinned up neatly. Even from a distance, there was something graceful about the way she moved. He shook his head, pushing away such thoughts. He had no business noticing women. His focus needed to be on his daughters and building them a new life. Mrs. Henderson's boarding house was exactly as advertised, clean and respectable. The widow who ran it was a stern-looking woman in her 60s, but her eyes softened when she saw the 5 girls climbing out of the wagon. "Mr. Wright needs rooms for his family," Benjamin explained. "I can see that. 2 rooms should suffice. The girls can share one and you will take the other. Meals are served at 7 in the morning, noon, and 6 in the evening. No exceptions. That will be $4 a week." It was steep, but Benjamin had little choice. He paid for 2 weeks, figuring that would give him time to find land and start building a house. That first evening in the boarding house dining room was awkward. The other guests, mostly single men working in town or passing through, stared openly at the unusual family. Benjamin kept his daughters close and ate quickly, eager to get them back to their room. Later, as he lay in his narrow bed listening to the sounds of the unfamiliar town through the window, Benjamin wondered if he had made a mistake coming here. But what choice did he have? The ranch held too many memories, and his daughters deserved a fresh start in a place where people did not look at them with constant pity. The next morning, Benjamin went to the land office while Mary watched her sisters. Mr. Patterson showed him several available parcels, and they rode out to inspect a promising piece of property about 3 miles east of town. It had a creek running through it, good grass, and a stand of cottonwood trees that would provide timber and shade. The price was fair, and Benjamin made the decision on the spot, signing the papers and paying the deposit. Now came the hard part: building a house and outbuildings before winter arrived. He had saved enough from the sale of the ranch to cover the land and materials, but the work would take months. Over the next 2 weeks, Benjamin fell into a routine. He would rise before dawn, take breakfast at the boarding house, then head out to the land to begin construction. He hired 2 local men to help with the heavy work, and slowly the frame of a house began to take shape. Meanwhile, Mary did her best to keep her younger sisters occupied and out of trouble in the confines of the boarding house. It was during the 3rd week that everything changed. Benjamin had come into town to purchase more lumber and nails. He was loading the supplies into the wagon when Emma, who had been sitting on the sidewalk playing with her doll, suddenly darted into the street chasing after a cat. "Emma," he shouted, but she was too focused on the cat to hear him. A rider was coming down the street at a fast trot, and Benjamin's heart stopped. He dropped the board he was holding and ran, but he knew he would not reach her in time. The woman appeared from nowhere, her blue skirts flying as she rushed from the sidewalk and scooped Emma up, spinning away from the horse just as it thundered past. The rider shouted an apology and continued on, oblivious to how close he had come to tragedy. Benjamin reached them, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The woman was kneeling on the ground, still holding Emma, checking her for injuries with gentle hands. "Are you hurt, sweetheart?" she asked Emma, her voice soft and reassuring. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I am sorry, I just wanted to pet the kitty." "I know, but you must always look both ways before going into the street. The horses cannot always stop in time." Benjamin knelt beside them, his hands shaking. "Emma, what were you thinking?" "I am sorry, Papa," Emma sobbed, reaching for him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, then looked at the woman who had saved his daughter. She was the same woman he had seen at the schoolhouse that first day. Up close, she was even lovelier, with kind green eyes and a smattering of freckles across her nose. "I do not know how to thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. She stood, brushing the dust from her skirt. "No thanks necessary. I am just glad she is safe. You moved so fast." "If you had not been there." He could not finish the sentence, but I was there and she is fine. She smiled down at Emma. "What is your name, dear?" "Emma Wright," the little girl said, hiccuping. "That is a beautiful name. I am Miss Teresa James. I teach at the school here in town." Benjamin stood, still holding Emma. "Benjamin Wright. This is my youngest. I have 4 more daughters." Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity. 5 daughters. My goodness. Their mother passed 3 years ago. I am raising them on my own. I see. Her expression softened. That must be quite a challenge. Before he could respond, Mary appeared, running down the sidewalk with the other girls behind her. "Papa, is Emma all right? I only turned my back for a moment." "She is fine, thanks to Miss James here." He set Emma down, and she immediately went to Mary, who hugged her fiercely. Teresa James looked at the 5 girls, and Benjamin saw something in her face he could not quite identify. Compassion, certainly, but something else too. "Are your daughters enrolled in school, Mr. Wright?" "Not yet. We only just arrived in town a few weeks ago. I've been focused on getting our homestead started." "I see. Well, the school year is already underway, but it is never too late to begin. Education is so important, especially for young ladies." Mary spoke up. "I have finished my schooling, Miss James, but my younger sisters would benefit greatly from proper instruction." "How old are you, dear?" 18, madam. "And you?" Teresa looked at Ruth. 16. Teresa nodded thoughtfully. "Well, 16 is not too old to continue learning if you are interested, and the younger girls certainly should be in school." Benjamin felt Emma's hand slip into his. He knew what he should do, but the thought of his daughters being away from him all day in town while he worked on the homestead made him uneasy. Who would watch over them? As if reading his mind, Teresa said gently, "They would be perfectly safe, Mr. Wright." The school day runs from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. Many of the children walk to school on their own, though some of the ranch families drive their children in wagons. 3 miles is a long walk for little ones," Benjamin said. "You are 3 miles out." "East of town, near the river." "That is quite a distance," Teresa agreed. "Perhaps until your homestead is more established, you could bring them to town in the mornings and collect them in the afternoons. Or they could stay in town during the week if you have family or friends here." "We are staying at the boarding house for now, but I cannot afford to keep rooms there indefinitely." Teresa was quiet for a moment, and Benjamin could see her thinking. Finally, she said, "Mr. Wright, may I speak plainly?" "Of course." "I can see that you are doing your very best for your daughters, but raising 5 girls alone is more than any one person should have to manage. You need help." The words hit him harder than he expected. He had been telling himself the same thing for 3 years, but hearing someone else say it out loud made it real. "I know that," he said quietly, "but I am all they have. May I help you?" The question hung in the air between them. Benjamin stared at her, not sure he had heard correctly. "I beg your pardon, may I help you?" Teresa repeated. "With your daughters, I am a teacher. I know children, and I can see that these lovely girls need." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "They need what you cannot give them through no fault of your own." Mary's eyes widened and Ruth gasped softly. Benjamin felt his face flush. "Miss James, I appreciate your concern, but I cannot impose on you like that. You are a stranger and you have your own responsibilities." "I am offering, Mr. Wright. That is not an imposition." Her voice was firm but kind. "I live in a small house behind the school. There is room for at least the younger girls if you would trust me with them during the week. They could attend school and I could help them with things that a woman understands better than a man." "Papa," Mary said softly. Perhaps we should consider it. Mary, we cannot ask Miss James to take on such a burden. You are not asking. I am offering. Teresa looked at each of the girls in turn. I became a teacher because I love children and I believe in their potential. Your daughters deserve every opportunity to grow into capable, educated women. Let me help them. Let me help you. Benjamin looked down at Emma, then at his other daughters. He saw the hope in their faces, the longing for something he could not name. How long had it been since they had known a woman's gentle touch, a woman's guidance? I need to think about it, he said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. Teresa reached into the small bag she carried and pulled out a piece of paper and a pencil. She wrote something down and handed it to him. This is where I live. Behind the schoolhouse, the small white house with the blue shutters. If you decide to accept my help, come find me. Anytime. She smiled at the girls, gave a polite nod to Benjamin, and walked away, her blue skirt swaying. Benjamin stood there holding the paper, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. That evening, after the girls were settled in their room, Mary came to his door. Papa, may I speak with you? Come in. She entered and sat on the edge of his bed. In the lamplight, she looked so much like Sarah that it made his chest ache. You should accept Miss James's offer, Mary said without preamble. Mary, I cannot just hand your sisters over to a stranger. She is not offering to take them away. She is offering to help. There is a difference. Mary folded her hands in her lap. Papa, I have tried my best to be a mother to Ruth and Grace and Hannah and Emma. I have tried so hard, but I do not know what I am doing. I was 15 when Mama died. I was still a child myself. You have done wonderfully. No, Papa. I have done adequately, and only just. Emma needs more than I can give her. She barely remembers Mama. And Hannah and Grace are at an age where they need guidance about becoming women, and I do not know how to guide them because I am still figuring it out myself. Tears welled in Mary's eyes. I love my sisters with all my heart, but I am tired. I am so tired. Benjamin pulled her into his arms as she cried. I am sorry. I have asked too much of you. I am not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I am telling you because Miss James's offer is an answer to a prayer I did not even know how to pray. She is kind. Did you see how she was with Emma? And she is educated. She can teach them things that neither you nor I can teach them. But to have them living with her during the week is perfectly sensible given how far out the homestead is, and they would still come home to us on weekends. Papa, please, think about what is best for them, not about your pride. Her words stung because they were true. His pride was part of what was holding him back. The admission that he could not do this alone felt like a failure. I will think about it, he promised. He did not sleep much that night. He lay awake thinking about Sarah, about the promises they had made to each other about raising their daughters together. He had never imagined doing it alone. And now here was this stranger offering to help, and every instinct he had was at war. Could he trust her? What did he really know about Teresa James? The next morning, Benjamin went to see Harold Mills at the general store. What can you tell me about the schoolteacher, Miss James? He asked, trying to sound casual. Harold looked up from his ledger. Teresa James, fine woman, been here about 2 years, came from back east somewhere, Pennsylvania, I think. Best teacher this town has ever had. The children love her and the parents respect her. Why do you ask? She offered to help with my daughters. Let them stay with her during the week so they can attend school regular. Harold's eyebrows rose. That is generous of her, though I cannot say I am surprised. She has a good heart, that one. Does she have family here? No family that I know of. Lives alone, keeps to herself mostly outside of her teaching duties. Goes to church every Sunday. Volunteers with the ladies' auxiliary. Harold leaned on the counter. If you are asking whether she is trustworthy, the answer is yes. I would trust Teresa James with my own children if I had any. That was good enough for Benjamin. He found Teresa at the schoolhouse that afternoon, wiping down slates after the students had gone home. She looked up when he knocked on the open door. "Mr. Wright, please come in." He stepped inside, hat in his hands. The schoolroom was neat and cheerful, with children's drawings pinned to one wall and a large map of the United States on another. "I have been thinking about your offer," he said, "and I would like to accept it if the offer still stands. But I have conditions." "Of course. What are your conditions?" "The girls come home every weekend, no exceptions, and if any of them are unhappy with the arrangement, it ends immediately. Also, I will pay you for your trouble." "That is not necessary." "It is to me. If you are feeding and housing my daughters, I will compensate you. I will not take charity." Teresa studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Shall we say $2 a week? That should cover food and incidentals." It was far less than the boarding house, and Benjamin suspected she was being more than fair. "Agreed. When would you want them to start?" "Whenever you are ready, though the sooner the better for their education." "Tomorrow, then. All 4 of the younger ones." "Mary is old enough to make her own choice, but I think she will want to stay with me at the boarding house and help with the homestead on weekends." "That sounds perfectly reasonable." Teresa smiled, and it transformed her face. "Mr. Wright, you are making the right decision. I promise you, I will take good care of your daughters." "I believe you will, Miss James." They discussed the practical details, and it was agreed that Benjamin would bring the girls and their belongings the next morning before heading out to work on the homestead. That evening, he gathered his daughters and explained the arrangement. Emma was excited, Hannah and Grace were cautiously optimistic, and Ruth looked relieved. Mary hugged him and whispered, "Thank you, Papa." The next morning, Benjamin loaded the wagon with the girls' trunks and bags. The ride to Teresa's house felt too short. When they arrived, she was waiting on the front porch, a welcoming smile on her face. The house was small but immaculate. There were 2 bedrooms, a main room with a kitchen area and a small parlor. Teresa had already prepared the second bedroom for the girls, with 2 narrow beds and space for their belongings. "Ruth and Grace can share one bed, Hannah and Emma the other," Teresa said. "I know it is a bit cramped, but we will manage." "It is perfect," Ruth said, running her hand over the colorful quilt on one of the beds. "Thank you, Miss James." Benjamin helped carry in the trunks, and then there was nothing left to do but say goodbye. Emma clung to him, suddenly unsure. "I will see you on Saturday," he promised, kneeling down to her level. "Just 5 days. You are going to learn so much, and Miss James will take good care of you." "You promise you will come back?" The question broke his heart. "I promise, sweetheart, I will always come back for you." He kissed each of his daughters, even Ruth, who insisted she was too old for such things, and then he left before his emotions could get the better of him. Mary sat beside him on the wagon seat as they drove away, and neither of them spoke for a long while. "It is the right thing," Mary said finally. "I know, but that does not make it easier." The week felt impossibly long. Benjamin threw himself into work on the homestead, framing walls and raising the roof with the help of his hired men. Mary cooked their meals and kept their room at the boarding house tidy. In the evenings, they would sit together, and Benjamin would talk about his plans for the ranch, trying to fill the silence left by the absence of 4 chattering girls. On Saturday morning, Benjamin woke before dawn. He could not have slept any longer if he tried. He and Mary had breakfast, then drove into town, arriving at Teresa's house just after 8 o'clock. The door flew open before he could knock, and Emma launched herself into his arms. "Papa, I learned my letters. Miss James taught me." The other girls crowded around, all talking at once about their week. They looked happy and well-fed, their hair neatly braided and their dresses clean. Teresa stood in the doorway, watching with a satisfied smile. "They were wonderful," she said when the initial excitement died down. "Ruth is quite gifted in mathematics and Grace has a talent for writing. Hannah is improving her reading every day and Emma is a quick learner." "I am glad to hear it. Thank you, Miss James. Please call me Teresa. I think we are past formalities at this point." "Then you must call me Benjamin." She nodded, and there was something warm in her eyes that made him feel strange. He pushed the feeling aside and focused on gathering his daughter's things for the weekend. The homestead was still very much a work in progress. The house had walls and a roof now, but no windows yet and only a dirt floor. Benjamin had set up a large tent where they would sleep until the house was finished. It was not much, but his daughters did not complain. They ran around exploring the property, splashing in the creek and helping where they could. On Sunday, they all went to church in town. Benjamin noticed Teresa sitting near the front, and after the service, she came over to greet them. "How are you enjoying your homestead?" she asked the girls. They all spoke at once, describing the creek and the cottonwood trees and the baby rabbit they had seen. Teresa listened attentively, asking questions and genuinely engaging with each girl. Benjamin found himself watching her, noting the way she interacted with his daughters, the easy affection that was growing between them. It had only been a week, but already she felt like part of their lives. That evening, when he drove the girls back to Teresa's house, Emma did not cry. She hugged him goodbye and skipped inside, eager to show Teresa a pretty rock she had found at the creek. "She is settling in well," Teresa observed as they stood on the porch. "Thanks to you. I cannot tell you what a difference this is making." "It is my pleasure, truly." "Your daughters are delightful." She paused. "Benjamin, would you like to come in for coffee? I have something I would like to discuss with you." Curious, he agreed. Mary took the younger girls to get ready for bed while Teresa poured coffee in the small kitchen. "I have been thinking," she said as they sat at the table. "The girls are doing well with their schoolwork, but there are other lessons they need. Practical skills that will serve them as they grow into women. Sewing, cooking, household management, social graces." "I had not thought that far ahead," Benjamin admitted. "I have been so focused on just getting through each day." "That is understandable, but these girls are growing up. Ruth will be 17 soon, and Mary is already of an age where she should be thinking about her future. They need to be prepared for life as adult women, whether that means running their own households someday or pursuing other opportunities." "What are you suggesting?" "I would like to spend time teaching them these skills, in addition to their regular schoolwork. It would mean they might need to stay with me a bit longer each week, perhaps not returning home until Sunday afternoon instead of Saturday morning." Benjamin felt a twist of loss at the thought of even less time with his daughters, but he could see the wisdom in what Teresa was saying. "If you think that is best, I do. And Benjamin, I know this is difficult for you. You are a good father and it is clear how much you love your girls, but part of loving them is preparing them for the future." He nodded, staring into his coffee cup. Their mother would have known all this. She would have taught them these things naturally, just by being with them every day. "I feel like I am failing them." "You are not failing them. You are giving them what they need, even though it costs you." Teresa reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. "That is love, Benjamin. Real love." Her touch sent a jolt through him and he looked up to meet her eyes. There was understanding there and something else he was afraid to name. He cleared his throat and pulled his hand back, standing up. "I should go. It is late and you have church in the morning." "Benjamin, did I say something wrong?" "No. No, you have been nothing but kind. I need to go." He left quickly, his heart pounding. As he drove the wagon back to the boarding house with Mary beside him, he tried to sort through the confusing tangle of feelings in his chest. "Papa, do you like Miss James?" Mary asked suddenly. "What? Of course I like her. She has been very helpful." "That is not what I mean, and you know it." Benjamin kept his eyes on the road. "Mary, do not start." "Why not? You are not too old to find happiness again, and Miss James is lovely. I have seen the way she looks at you. You are imagining things. I am not. And I saw the way you looked at her tonight when we left. Papa, Mama would not want you to be alone forever." "I am not alone. I have you and your sisters. That is not the same, and you know it." Mary's voice was gentle. "I loved Mama with all my heart, but she is gone and you are still here. You deserve to have a life beyond just working and raising us. This is not an appropriate conversation." Mary sighed. "Fine, but you should know that all of us girls have talked about it. We would be happy if you and Miss James—" "Mary, I am just saying." Benjamin did not sleep well that night. He kept thinking about Teresa's hand on his, the warmth in her eyes, the way she had looked at his daughters with such genuine affection. He had not thought about another woman since Sarah died. There had been no room in his heart for anything but grief and responsibility. But now, lying in the dark, he had to admit that something was shifting. Teresa was kind and intelligent and beautiful. She cared for his daughters in a way that went beyond duty. And when she looked at him, he felt something he had not felt in years: hope. But what right did he have to pursue such feelings? He was a widower with 5 daughters and a half-built homestead. What could he possibly offer a woman like Teresa James? The weeks passed, falling into a rhythm. Benjamin worked on the homestead during the week, and the girls stayed with Teresa, attending school and learning both academic subjects and practical skills. On Sundays, the whole family would attend church together, and Benjamin noticed that he and Teresa always seemed to find reasons to speak with each other afterward. The house was making good progress. By June, the walls were up, the roof was solid, and Benjamin had installed windows that he had ordered from a supplier in Cheyenne. The floor was still dirt, but he planned to add wooden planks as he could afford them. There was a main room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen area, and 3 bedrooms. One for him, one for the older girls, and one for the younger ones. In early July, the girls spent a full week at the homestead to help set up the house. Teresa had given them the week off from school, and they threw themselves into making the place a home. Mary and Ruth sewed curtains from fabric Benjamin bought in town. Grace and Hannah scrubbed every surface until it gleamed. Emma picked wildflowers and put them in jars of water on the table. On Saturday evening, as they all sat around the fireplace eating the stew Mary had made, Benjamin looked at his daughters and felt a contentment he had not experienced in years. They were thriving. They were happy. "Papa, can we invite Miss James to come see the house?" Emma asked. "I suppose that would be all right. She has done so much for us. It would be nice to show her what we have accomplished." "Can we invite her tomorrow after church?" Hannah asked. "If she is free, yes." The next morning, Benjamin found himself more nervous than he cared to admit as they approached Teresa after the service. Emma ran up to her, pulling on her skirt. "Miss James, will you come to our house today? We want to show you everything." Teresa laughed. "Well, that is a lovely invitation. I would be delighted." "It is not fancy," Benjamin felt compelled to say. "Still rough around the edges." "I am sure it is wonderful," Teresa said warmly. She rode with them in the wagon, sitting beside Benjamin on the bench while the girls chattered in the back. He was acutely aware of her presence, the way her shoulder occasionally brushed against his as the wagon rolled over uneven ground, the scent of lavender that seemed to cling to her. When they arrived at the homestead, the girls pulled Teresa from the wagon and gave her a thorough tour, pointing out every detail with pride. She admired everything, asking questions and offering genuine compliments. "Benjamin, you have built something truly special here," she said as they stood on the porch looking out over the property. The afternoon sun turned the grassland golden, and the creek sparkled in the distance. "It is coming together slowly, still a lot of work to do. But you can see the future of it, you can see what it will become." He looked at her instead of the land. "Yes, I can." Their eyes met, and something passed between them. One of the girls called for Teresa to come see something inside, and the moment broke. They had dinner together, and afterward, the girls performed a little play they had written under Teresa's guidance during their lessons. Benjamin sat and watched, his heart full, realizing that this felt like a family in a way it had not since Sarah died. When it was time for Teresa to return to town, Benjamin offered to drive her. "The girls can stay here tonight," he said. "Mary can watch them. I will drive you back and return before dark." Teresa agreed, and they set off alone together in the wagon. For a while neither spoke, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Teresa said, "Your daughters are remarkable, Benjamin. You should be proud." "I am, but I cannot take much credit. You have done more for them in the past 2 months than I managed in 3 years. "That is not true. You gave them love and stability when their world fell apart. That is no small thing." She paused. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." "What was your wife like, Sarah?" The question surprised him. No one had asked about Sarah in a long time. People tended to avoid the subject, afraid of causing pain. "She was sunshine," Benjamin said after a moment. "That is the best way I can describe her. She lit up every room she entered. She laughed easily and loved fiercely. She made everything better just by being there." "She sounds wonderful." She was. Losing her nearly destroyed me. For the first year, I was just going through the motions, trying to keep myself and the girls alive from one day to the next. The second year was a bit easier, and by the third, I realized I needed to give my daughters more than just survival. That is why I sold the ranch and came here. It took courage to start over. I had no choice. He glanced at her. "What about you? How did you end up in Shoshone City?" Teresa was quiet for a moment. "I came west after my parents died. They had a farm in Pennsylvania, but when they were both gone, there was nothing keeping me there. I had always wanted to teach, and I heard that schools out west were desperate for teachers. So I applied to several positions and accepted the one here." "You miss Pennsylvania?" "Sometimes. But I have built a life here. I have my students, my work, my small house. It is enough." "Is it?" Benjamin found himself asking. "Do you ever want more?" Teresa turned to look at him, her green eyes searching his face. "What are you really asking, Benjamin?" He pulled the wagon to a stop. They were still a mile from town, surrounded by nothing but grass and sky. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to speak. "I am asking if you ever think about having a family of your own, a husband, children, all the things a woman like you deserves. A woman like me, kind, intelligent, beautiful." The word slipped out before he could stop it, and he saw her eyes widen. "I am sorry, that was inappropriate." "No," Teresa said softly. "It was not." They stared at each other, and Benjamin felt the world narrow to just the two of them. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned toward her. When she did not move, he closed the distance and kissed her gently. Her lips were soft and warm, and when she kissed him back, something that had been frozen inside him for 3 years began to thaw. The kiss was brief, chaste even, but it changed everything. When they pulled apart, Teresa's cheeks were flushed. "Benjamin, I should not have done that," he said quickly. "You have been so good to my daughters, and I have overstepped. Please forgive me." "There is nothing to forgive. I wanted you to kiss me. I have wanted it for weeks now." Hope flared in his chest. "You have?" "Yes, But Benjamin, we need to be practical. You have 5 daughters who depend on you. I am their teacher. If there is something growing between us, we need to be certain before we act on it. For their sake. I understand. You are right. He picked up the reins again. But Teresa, I need you to know something. I have not thought about another woman since Sarah died. I did not think I ever would, but you have changed that. You have brought light back into my life and my daughters' lives. Whatever happens between us, I am grateful for that. Benjamin, I care for you, and I love your girls as if they were my own, but I need time to think about what this means, what it could mean. Take all the time you need. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. When he dropped her off at her house, she touched his hand briefly. I will see you next week, she said. Yes, next week. As Benjamin drove back to the homestead, his mind was racing. He had kissed Teresa James. He had told her she was beautiful, and she had said she cared for him. What had he done? But beneath the uncertainty, there was something else. Joy, pure, unexpected joy. When he arrived back at the homestead, Mary was waiting on the porch. One look at his face and she smiled. You told her, she said. I kissed her, Benjamin admitted. Mary laughed and hugged him. It is about time, Papa. Over the next few weeks, Benjamin and Teresa were careful. They did not want to confuse the girls or rush into anything. But there were stolen moments. A lingering glance during church, conversations that went deeper than before, the occasional touch of hands that sent sparks through both of them. The girls noticed, of course. Children always notice. But they said nothing, though Benjamin caught them whispering among themselves and giggling when he and Teresa were together. In August, Benjamin invited Teresa to Sunday dinner at the homestead. It was Mary's idea, but he readily agreed. The girls prepared a feast, and Teresa brought a pie she had baked. After dinner, as the sun was setting, Benjamin asked Teresa to walk with him down to the creek. The girls watched them go with barely concealed excitement. They know, Teresa said with a smile. Your daughters are not subtle. No, they are not, Benjamin agreed. Teresa, I have been thinking about what you said, about being certain before we move forward. And, I am certain. I do not know when it happened exactly. Maybe it was the first day when you saved Emma. Maybe it was when you asked if you could help. Or maybe it was during one of the 100 small moments since then. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you. Teresa stopped walking and turned to face him. Benjamin, you do not have to say anything. I just needed you to know. I love you, Teresa James. I love the way you care for my daughters. I love your kindness and your strength. I love how you look at the world with hope instead of cynicism. I know I am a lot to take on. A widowed cowboy with 5 daughters and a half-built ranch. But if you could see your way to building a life with us, I would spend every day trying to make you happy. Tears were streaming down Teresa's face. Oh, Benjamin, I love you too. I have been so afraid to admit it, even to myself. I did not come to Wyoming looking for love. I came looking for purpose. But then, you and your daughters walked into my life and everything changed. Benjamin pulled her into his arms and kissed her properly, not the tentative kiss they had shared before, but something deeper, full of promise and passion. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Marry me, Benjamin said. I know it is fast, but I am too old to play games. I want you to be my wife. I want to build this life with you. Yes, Teresa said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I will marry you. A cheer erupted from the direction of the house, and they looked up to see 5 girls on the porch, jumping and hugging each other. They had been watching the whole time. Benjamin and Teresa walked back hand in hand, and the girls swarmed them, talking over each other in their excitement. When is the wedding? Can we help plan it? Will you live here with us, Miss James? Are you going to be our new mama? Teresa knelt down to Emma's level. I will never try to replace your mama, sweetheart. She will always be your mama, and she will always have a special place in your heart. But if you will have me, I would be honored to be part of this family. I want you to be part of our family, Emma said seriously. I love you, Miss James. I love you too, Emma. I love all of you. The wedding was planned for September, giving them a few weeks to prepare. Teresa would not be able to continue teaching once she was married, as married women were not permitted to hold teaching positions, but she seemed at peace with that decision. I will have a classroom of 5 instead of 30, she said with a smile. And I will be teaching the most important students of all. The whole town turned out for the wedding. They gathered at the church, and Benjamin stood at the altar watching Teresa walk down the aisle in a simple white dress. She carried wildflowers that the girls had picked that morning, and her eyes never left his face. When the preacher asked if anyone objected to the union, Benjamin half expected someone to speak up. It seemed too good to be true, this second chance at happiness. But the church remained silent, and the preacher pronounced them man and wife. The kiss was chaste but full of promise, and as they walked back down the aisle together, Benjamin felt Sarah's presence for just a moment. Not sad or jealous, but approving. He knew in his heart that she would have loved Teresa, would have wanted this for him and their daughters. There was a reception at the boarding house, with cake and dancing and more joy than Benjamin had experienced in years. His daughters danced together, their faces flushed with happiness. Mary pulled him aside at one point and whispered, "Mama would be so happy for you, Papa, for all of us." "I think she would," Benjamin agreed, his voice thick with emotion. As evening fell, Benjamin and Teresa rode out to the homestead together. The girls were staying in town with Mrs. Henderson for the night, giving the newlyweds some privacy. Inside the house, Teresa looked around with new eyes. This was her home now, their home. "I cannot believe this is real," she said softly. 6 months ago I was alone. Now I have a husband and 5 daughters and a home. Are you happy?" Benjamin asked, pulling her close. "Happier than I ever thought possible." They stood together in the growing darkness, holding each other, both marveling at how life could change so completely in such a short time. That night, in the privacy of their bedroom, they came together as husband and wife, sealing the promises they had made. It was tender and passionate and new, and Benjamin felt layers of grief and loneliness peel away with every touch. Afterwards, lying beside Teresa in the dark, he whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For asking if you could help. For giving me and my daughters a second chance at happiness, for loving us. Benjamin, you gave me just as much, maybe more. I thought I would spend my life alone, teaching other people's children. But you gave me a family. You gave me everything I did not even know I wanted." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time in 3 years, Benjamin slept through the night without nightmares. The next day, the girls returned, chattering with excitement about the wedding and the dancing and all the food. They settled into their new life with Teresa as their stepmother with remarkable ease. She was firm but fair, teaching them not just academic subjects but how to navigate the world as capable young women. As autumn arrived, the homestead began to feel truly like a home. Teresa's touches were everywhere. Curtains in the windows, a garden behind the house, the smell of fresh bread baking. The girls thrived under her care, and Benjamin found himself looking forward to coming home each evening, knowing Teresa would be there with a smile and a warm meal. In October, Mary announced that she had been corresponding with a young man from town, the son of the blacksmith. Benjamin had noticed them talking after church, but had not thought much of it. Now, watching Mary blush as she spoke about him, he realized his oldest daughter was growing up. "His name is William Peterson, and he has asked if he might call on me properly," Mary said. I wanted your permission, Papa. Benjamin looked at Teresa, who nodded encouragingly. Of course he may call on you. I would like to meet him first, though. Have him come to dinner next Sunday. William Peterson turned out to be a respectful young man of 21, hard-working and polite. He was clearly smitten with Mary, and she with him. After dinner, as the young couple sat on the porch talking in low voices, Teresa came to stand beside Benjamin. "You are thinking about Sarah," she observed. "How did you know?" "Because I am thinking about her too, wishing she could see what a beautiful young woman Mary has become." "She would have loved this," Benjamin said. "Watching Mary fall in love, I wish she could be here for it." "In a way she is. She lives on in your daughters, in the values you and she instilled in them. Mary is kind and responsible because Sarah taught her to be in the few years they had together." Benjamin pulled Teresa close. "How did I get so lucky twice in one lifetime?" "I ask myself the same thing every day." As winter approached, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Benjamin continued to build up the ranch, adding a barn and corrals. He bought a small herd of cattle and some horses. Teresa taught the girls their lessons and managed the household. In the evenings, they would gather around the fireplace, reading or talking or playing games. William Peterson continued to court Mary, and by Christmas, Benjamin could see where it was headed. He was not surprised when William came to him one snowy afternoon in January, hat in hand, asking permission to marry Mary. "She is only 18, Benjamin said, though he knew his objection was weak. "I know, sir, but I love her and I can provide for her. My father is planning to retire soon, and the blacksmith business will be mine. I will take good care of her, I swear it." Benjamin looked at the young man's earnest face and remembered being that age, desperately in love with Sarah, asking her father for the same permission. "If Mary wants to marry you, you have my blessing. But you should know that she is precious to me. If you hurt her, you will answer to me. Understood?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." Mary accepted William's proposal with tears of joy, and the wedding was planned for May. Teresa threw herself into helping with the preparations, and the house buzzed with excitement. In March, Teresa came to Benjamin with news of her own. "I think I am with child," she said quietly one evening after the girls had gone to bed. Benjamin felt his heart stop and then start again, pounding hard. "Are you certain?" "Not completely, but I am fairly sure. I have been feeling unwell in the mornings and I am late with my monthly courses." He pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed with emotion. "A baby, our baby." "Are you happy? I know you already have 5 daughters." "I am thrilled," he said fiercely. "Teresa, you have given me so much already, now this, I do not deserve you." "Yes, you do. We deserve each other. We deserve this happiness." The pregnancy was confirmed by the doctor in town, and the baby was expected in October. The girls were ecstatic, each of them already planning how they would help with the new baby. Mary's wedding in May was beautiful. She wore Teresa's wedding dress, altered to fit, and carried the same wildflowers Teresa had carried at her own wedding. William looked at Mary like she hung the moon, and Benjamin felt both joy and loss as he walked her down the aisle. "I love you, Papa," Mary whispered before he handed her over to William. "I love you too, sweetheart. Be happy." At the reception, Benjamin danced with Teresa, who was just beginning to show her pregnancy. "Our family is changing," he said. "Families always change. That is how they grow." Teresa smiled up at him. "But the love stays constant." By summer, the homestead was thriving. The cattle were doing well, Benjamin had hired a ranch hand to help with the work, and the house was full of life and laughter. Ruth announced that she wanted to become a teacher like Teresa, and they began making plans for her to attend normal school. Grace discovered a talent for art, sketching the landscape and animals with remarkable skill. Hannah helped Teresa in the garden, and Emma was learning to read fluently. Mary and William visited often, and Mary confided to Teresa that she thought she might be pregnant too. "I hope it is true," she said. "I want to give William a son." "Children are a blessing, whatever they are," Teresa said gently. "I have learned that well." In October, Teresa went into labor on a sunny afternoon. Benjamin was out checking on the cattle when Grace came riding hard to find him. "Papa, it is time. The baby is coming." He rode back faster than was probably wise, his heart in his throat. The midwife had already arrived, and the younger girls were huddled in the main room, waiting anxiously. The labor was long and difficult. Benjamin paced outside the bedroom door, remembering Sarah's 5 labors, each one terrifying in its own way. He prayed harder than he had prayed in years, begging God to keep Teresa safe. Finally, just after midnight, he heard a baby's cry. The midwife opened the door, smiling. "You have a son, Mr. Wright, and your wife is tired but well. A son." Benjamin felt tears streaming down his face as he entered the bedroom. Teresa lay exhausted against the pillows, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up at him with a radiant smile. "Come meet your son," she whispered. Benjamin took the baby carefully, awed by how small he was. The infant had a shock of dark hair, and his eyes, when they briefly opened, were blue. "What should we name him?" Teresa asked. Benjamin thought for a moment. "I would like to name him after my father. Samuel Benjamin Wright." "Samuel," Teresa repeated. "It is perfect." The girls were allowed in to meet their baby brother, each of them marveling over his tiny fingers and toes. Even Ruth, who tried to act grown up, melted at the sight of him. "I have always wanted a brother," Emma said seriously. "I will teach him everything I know." "That might take 5 minutes," Grace teased, and Emma stuck her tongue out at her. Benjamin watched his family gathered around Teresa and the baby and felt a profound sense of gratitude. 5 years ago, he had been drowning in grief, barely keeping his head above water. Now he had a wife he loved, 5 daughters who were thriving, and a newborn son. The first year of Samuel's life was exhausting but joyful. He was a colicky baby who did not sleep much, and both Benjamin and Teresa walked many late-night hours trying to soothe him. The girls helped where they could, and even the ranch hands took turns bouncing the baby when Benjamin needed to get work done. Mary gave birth to her own son in December, naming him Benjamin after his grandfather. Benjamin Wright held his grandson and felt the circle of life continuing, felt the weight of responsibility and love passing to the next generation. Ruth left for normal school in the spring, determined to follow in Teresa's footsteps. It was hard to see her go, but Benjamin was proud of her ambition. Grace began selling her sketches in town, earning her own money. Hannah, at 15, was beginning to attract attention from boys, which made Benjamin deeply uncomfortable. Emma, now 7, was still his baby even though Samuel had taken that role literally. As the years passed, the homestead grew into a proper ranch. Benjamin hired more hands and expanded the herd. The house was enlarged with more bedrooms and a proper parlor. They added a bunkhouse for the ranch hands and a larger barn. Teresa managed it all with grace and patience, raising Samuel and continuing to teach the younger girls at home. She had given up her formal teaching position, but she never stopped being an educator at heart. In 1880, on a warm summer evening, Benjamin and Teresa sat on the porch watching the sunset. Samuel, now 3 years old, was chasing fireflies in the yard. Inside, they could hear Grace and Hannah laughing over something. "Did you ever imagine this?" Teresa asked, leaning against Benjamin's shoulder. "When you first came to Shoshone City with 5 motherless daughters?" "Not in my wildest dreams," Benjamin admitted. "I was just trying to survive, to give my girls a roof over their heads and food in their bellies." And now look at what you have built. A family. A legacy. We built it together. I could not have done any of this without you." Benjamin took her hand. "You know what I remember most? That first time you spoke to me after you saved Emma. You asked, 'May I help you?' Those 4 words changed everything." Teresa smiled. "I remember wondering if you would say yes. You looked so overwhelmed, so exhausted. I wanted to help, but I was not sure you would let me. I am glad I said yes. Best decision I ever made besides marrying you." "I would say they were both fairly good decisions," Teresa teased. Samuel ran up to the porch, his small hand clutching 3 captured fireflies. "Look, Mama! Look, Papa! That is wonderful, son. But you need to let them go now so they can fly free." Samuel carefully opened his hand, and the fireflies floated away into the twilight, their lights blinking. "Will they come back?" Samuel asked. "Maybe," Benjamin said. "But even if these ones do not, there will always be more. The world is full of light if you know where to look for it." Teresa squeezed his hand, and he knew she understood what he really meant. After darkness, there could be light again. After loss, there could be love. Life went on, and if you were very lucky, it gave you second chances. Mary and William had 3 more children over the next few years, giving Benjamin a total of 4 grandchildren. Ruth became a teacher in a neighboring town and eventually married a rancher. Grace moved to Denver to pursue her art more seriously, but visited often. Hannah married a lawyer from Cheyenne. Emma, his baby, grew into a beautiful young woman who loved the ranch as much as he did. Teresa gave birth to 2 more children, a daughter they named Sarah after Benjamin's first wife, and another son they named James after Teresa's father. The house was never quiet, always full of children and grandchildren and life. In 1890, on Benjamin's 50th birthday, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. All 5 of his daughters were there with their families. Samuel, now 13, helped his younger siblings run around chasing the grandchildren. The house overflowed with people and noise and love. That evening, after everyone had gone home or gone to bed, Benjamin and Teresa took a walk down to the creek, just as they had on the night he proposed. 50 years old, Benjamin mused. I am officially an old man. You are in your prime, Teresa corrected. Look at everything you have accomplished. We accomplished. I never forget that, Teresa. None of this would exist without you. They stood by the creek, listening to the water flow, watching the stars come out. Benjamin thought about the man he had been 14 years ago, broken and desperate, trying to raise 5 daughters alone. He thought about Sarah and the life they had built together, cut short too soon. He thought about the day a schoolteacher with auburn hair and kind eyes asked if she could help. I love you, he said to Teresa, as he said every day. Thank you for saving us. You saved me just as much, Teresa replied. I was alone, teaching other people's children, never thinking I would have a family of my own. Then you and your 5 remarkable daughters walked into my life and gave me everything. They kissed in the moonlight, and Benjamin felt the same spark he had felt that first time, the same sense of rightness. This was exactly where he was supposed to be. As they walked back to the house, Benjamin looked at the life he had built. The solid house with light glowing in the windows. The barn and corrals. The cattle grazing in the distance. The family sleeping safely under his roof. It had all started with tragedy and loss, but it had become something beautiful. In the main room, Teresa lit a lamp and picked up the Bible. It was their nightly routine when they were home, reading together before bed. But tonight, she set it down and looked at him thoughtfully. Benjamin, do you ever regret it? Any of it? What do you mean, losing Sarah? Having to raise the girls alone for those years, coming to Wyoming. All the struggle and hardship. Benjamin considered the question carefully. I would give anything to have had Sarah alive, To have her see our daughters grow up, that grief will never fully go away, but I cannot regret the path that led me here to you. Does that make sense? It does. I feel the same way about my own losses. I wish my parents had lived, that I had not been alone for so many years. But if things had been different, I would not have come to Shoshone City. I would not have met you and the girls. So while I mourn what was lost, I celebrate what was found. That is beautiful, Benjamin said softly. You always know how to put things into words. That is why I was a teacher, Teresa said with a smile. Come to bed, my love, we have a big day tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Life. Another day of this beautiful life we have built. As Benjamin lay in bed that night, Teresa sleeping beside him and the house quiet around him, he thought about the question she had asked. Did he regret anything? The answer was complicated. He regretted that Sarah had died so young. He regretted the years his daughters had gone without a mother's love. He regretted not being able to give them everything they needed on his own. But he did not regret the journey. The struggles had made him stronger, made his family stronger. The loss had taught him to appreciate what he had. And the loneliness had made him recognize love when it appeared in the form of a schoolteacher who asked if she could help. 3 simple words that had led to this. A warm bed, a loving wife, a house full of children and grandchildren, a legacy that would outlive him. Not a bad life for a widowed cowboy who once thought he had lost everything. The years continued to pass, bringing changes and challenges but always rooted in love. Samuel grew into a fine young man who took over more and more of the ranch operations, learning from his father. Sarah, named for the grandmother she never knew, became a skilled horsewoman. Young James showed an aptitude for numbers and talked about becoming a banker. In 1895, on a cold January morning, Benjamin received word that Mary was seriously ill. He and Teresa immediately traveled to her home, finding their eldest daughter weak with pneumonia. William was beside himself with worry, and their 4 children were frightened. Benjamin sat by Mary's bedside, holding her hand just as he had when she was a little girl. She looked so small in the bed, her face pale and drawn. "Papa," she whispered, "I am sorry." "Sorry for what, sweetheart? For not being strong enough, for leaving my children." "You are not leaving anyone. You are going to fight this and get better." But Mary shook her head slightly. "I can feel it, Papa. I am not afraid. I just wish I had more time." Tears streamed down Benjamin's face. "Please, Mary, please fight. Your children need you. William needs you. I need you. You have Teresa. The children have William. They will be all right." Mary's eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. "Papa, I need to tell you something. After Mama died, I was so angry at God. Why would He take her from us? Why would He leave us alone?" "I felt the same way," Benjamin admitted. "But then you found Teresa. And I realized that God had not abandoned us. He just had a different plan. Teresa was the mother we needed in that season of our lives. She saved us all." Mary squeezed his hand weakly. "I am not angry anymore. I understand now that love does not end. It just changes form." "Mary, please." But she had closed her eyes again, her breathing shallow and labored. Teresa came to stand beside Benjamin, placing a hand on his shoulder. They kept vigil through the night, but by morning, Mary was gone. The grief was crushing. Benjamin felt like he had been transported back to the day Sarah died, that same sense of the world being fundamentally wrong. How could Mary be gone? His firstborn, his helper, the girl who had stood beside him through the darkest years of his life. The funeral was held on a gray February day. The whole town turned out to pay their respects. William was devastated, and his children clung to Teresa, who held them and let them cry. In the weeks that followed, Benjamin struggled. He found himself thinking about Sarah and Mary, about the unfairness of losing people you loved. He wondered if life would always be this cycle of joy and loss, building something beautiful only to watch pieces of it crumble away. One evening, he shared these dark thoughts with Teresa. She listened quietly, then took his hand. "You are right," she said. "Life is joy and loss intertwined. We cannot have one without risking the other. But Benjamin, would you choose never to have loved Mary just to avoid the pain of losing her?" "No, never. Neither would I. She was a gift, from the moment she first called me Mama Teresa to the day she died. Yes, losing her hurts. It hurts desperately, but I would not trade a single moment we had with her to avoid this pain." Benjamin pulled Teresa close, burying his face in her hair. "I do not know what I would do without you. You will never have to find out. We are in this together, for whatever time we have." Time, as it always does, helped heal the wound. The pain of losing Mary never fully went away, but it became something Benjamin could carry. William and the children visited often, and watching Mary's children grow helped keep her memory alive. In 1900, as the new century dawned, the Wright Ranch was one of the most successful in the region. Samuel, now 23, effectively ran the operation with Benjamin's guidance. Ruth had 6 children of her own and was still teaching. Grace had become a well-known artist in Denver. Hannah's husband had been elected to the territorial legislature. Emma had married a neighboring rancher and lived just 5 miles away. On New Year's Day, the entire extended family gathered at the ranch. There were now 17 grandchildren, ranging from infants to young adults, and the house could barely contain them all. The noise was tremendous, the chaos complete, and Benjamin loved every minute of it. He stood on the porch watching the grandchildren play in the snow, and Teresa came to stand beside him. She was 50 now, with silver threading through her auburn hair, but to Benjamin, she was as beautiful as the day he first saw her sweeping the schoolhouse steps. "A new century," she mused. "I wonder what it will bring. More of this, I hope. Family, love, the ranch. Samuel is ready to take over completely, you know. You have trained him well. I suppose I am getting to the age where I should think about retiring. Spend my days on this porch watching the world go by." Teresa laughed. "You would be bored within a week, probably, but it might be nice to slow down, spend more time with you and the grandchildren." Inside, they could hear someone starting to play the piano. Emma's voice rose in song, and soon others joined in. Benjamin and Teresa went inside to join the celebration, surrounded by the family they had built together. As Benjamin looked around at all the faces, the descendants of the 5 frightened little girls who had arrived in Shoshone City 24 years ago, he marveled at the way life unfolded. None of this had been planned. Sarah's death had seemed like the end of everything, but it had been a beginning too in ways he could never have imagined. He caught Samuel's eye across the room, and his son raised his glass in a silent toast. Benjamin nodded back, a lump in his throat. His legacy was secure. The ranch would continue. The family would go on. That night, after everyone had finally gone to bed or headed home, Benjamin and Teresa sat by the fire. She was knitting a blanket for the newest grandchild, and he was reading the newspaper. "Benjamin," Teresa said suddenly, "do you remember the day we met? Every detail. You saved Emma from being trampled. I thought you were an angel. I remember looking at you and your 5 daughters and feeling this overwhelming urge to help. I did not understand it at the time. I just knew you needed me. We did need you. Desperately. But what I did not realize was that I needed you just as much. I was so lonely, Benjamin, teaching other people's children, living in my little house behind the school, going through the motions of life but never really living. Then you came along and gave me everything I had given up hoping for." Benjamin set down his newspaper and moved to sit beside her. "We saved each other. Yes, That is exactly right. She set down her knitting and looked at him. I want you to know something. If I had my life to live over, knowing everything that would happen, the joys and the sorrows, I would not change a single thing, not one moment, because it all led me to you and to this life we have built. I feel the same way. Benjamin kissed her softly. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, one of the best things. The girls would argue they should rank higher. Teresa laughed. The girls made us who we are, all of them, including Mary. She is still with us, you know. In her children, in the lessons she taught her siblings, in the love she shared. I know. I feel her sometimes, especially when the whole family is together. She is proud of what we have all become. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. Outside, snow was falling again, blanketing the world in quiet beauty. The ranch was peaceful, the animals settled in the barn, the grandchildren dreaming in their beds. This was what happiness looked like, Benjamin thought. Not the absence of sorrow, but the presence of love strong enough to carry you through it. Not a life without challenges, but a partnership that made every challenge bearable. As they climbed the stairs to bed, Benjamin took one last look around the house. The walls held photographs now, capturing moments across 2.5 decades. There was one of Mary on her wedding day, radiant with joy. One of all 5 girls together before Ruth left for normal school. One of Teresa holding baby Samuel. One from just last year, 3 generations gathered on this very porch, a life in pictures, a legacy in faces in their bedroom as they settled under the quilts Teresa had sewn. Benjamin pulled her close. Thank you, he whispered into the darkness. For what? For asking if you could help. For saying yes when I asked you to marry me, for loving my daughters as your own, for giving me more children, for building this life with me, for everything. Teresa kissed him gently. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your heart and your daughters. For making me part of this beautiful, chaotic, wonderful family. For loving me. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, their hearts beating in sync. 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built something that would outlast them both. Years later, when Benjamin was 70 years old and Teresa was 65, they took one last ride out to the spot by the creek where he had first proposed. It was harder to ride now, their bodies not as flexible as they once were, but they managed. They sat on the creek bank, holding hands, listening to the water flow just as they had so many times before. You remember what I said that night? Benjamin asked. When I proposed, every word. You said I was kind and intelligent and beautiful. You said you loved how I cared for your daughters. You said you would spend every day trying to make me happy. Did I succeed? Did I make you happy? Teresa turned to look at him, and her eyes were bright with tears. Every single day. You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams. You gave me love and children and grandchildren and purpose. You gave me everything. You gave me life again, Teresa. After Sarah died, I was just existing. You taught me how to live again, how to love again. You are the miracle I did not know to pray for. They kissed, gentle and sweet, 2 people who had spent half their lives together and knew every line on each other's faces, every scar, every story. What do you suppose happens next? Teresa asked. We are getting old, Benjamin. We cannot run this ranch forever. Samuel is already running it. We are just advisors now. Benjamin smiled. What happens next is we grow old together. We watch our grandchildren have children of their own. We sit on that porch and count our blessings. And when the time comes for one of us to go, the other will remember. They will remember everything we built together, and they will know it was worth it. It was worth it, Teresa agreed. Every moment, every joy, every sorrow, all of it was worth it. They stayed by the creek until the sun began to set. painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Then they rode slowly back to the house, to the life they had built, to the family waiting for them. That evening, surrounded by children and grandchildren, Benjamin looked around the table at the faces he loved. Samuel sat at his right, confident and capable, ready to lead the family into the future. Emma sat beside her husband, their 3 children squirming in their seats. The grandchildren from Ruth, Grace, and Hannah filled the rest of the chairs, with the smallest ones on laps. Mary's oldest son, named Benjamin for his grandfather, sat near the end of the table. He was 25 now, with children of his own, and he carried himself with the same grace Mary had possessed. "Grandfather," young Benjamin said, raising his glass, "I would like to propose a toast." The table quieted, all eyes turning to him. "My mother told me many stories before she died. Stories about how you raised 5 daughters alone after grandmother Sarah passed away. How you brought them to Wyoming looking for a fresh start. How you met grandmother Teresa, and she saved Aunt Emma and asked if she could help." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "You built something remarkable here, grandfather, not just this ranch but this family. You taught us that love is stronger than loss, that family is everything, and that second chances are real." To Benjamin and Teresa Wright. To Benjamin and Teresa. Everyone echoed, raising their glasses. Benjamin stood, his hand finding Teresa's. "I cannot take credit for any of this. Your grandmother Sarah started it by giving me 5 beautiful daughters. Your grandmother Teresa saved it by teaching me how to live again. Everything good in my life came from loving and being loved by extraordinary women. To the women who made me who I am." To the women, the family cheered. Later, as the evening wound down and families began heading home, Samuel pulled his parents aside. "I have news," he said, his face split in a huge grin. "Margaret is expecting again. The baby will be here in the spring." Teresa clapped her hands together. "Oh, how wonderful, your 4th child. I am so happy for you both." "There is more," Samuel continued. "Margaret thinks it might be twins. The doctor says she is measuring large." Benjamin laughed, a deep belly laugh that made everyone in the room turn to look. "Twins? Well, that is certainly fitting for this family. We seem to collect children." That night, long after everyone had gone, Benjamin and Teresa lay in bed talking about the news. Twins would bring the number of great-grandchildren to 23. 23, Benjamin marveled. "How did we get so lucky?" "We took a chance on each other," Teresa said simply. "That first step when I asked if I could help and you said yes, everything else flowed from that moment of trust. I trusted you the moment I saw you with Emma. You were so gentle with her, so caring. I knew right then that you were special." "I knew it too, I just did not know what it meant yet." Teresa snuggled closer. "Benjamin, I need to tell you something. I have been thinking about Mary's words to you before she died, about how love does not end, it just changes form. I think about that often. When my time comes, and one day it will, I want you to remember something. My love for you and for our family will not end. It will change form. It will be in the songs we taught the children, in the quilts I made for each grandchild, in the memories we created together. Love does not die. It transforms." "Teresa, do not talk like that. You are going to live forever," she smiled. "No one lives forever, my love, but some loves do. Ours will. It will live in Samuel and Sarah and James, in all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, in this ranch and this family. We will live on through them." Benjamin knew she was right, but he pushed the thought away. He could not imagine life without Teresa. She had been his partner, his best friend, his love for nearly 30 years now. The thought of losing her was unbearable. But time, as it always does, moved forward. Samuel's wife did indeed have twins, 2 beautiful girls they named Mary and Sarah after their grandmothers. The family celebrated the new arrivals with joy, seeing them as a continuation of the Wright legacy. Benjamin and Teresa moved into a slower pace of life. They still lived at the ranch, but Samuel and his family occupied the main house now while they had a smaller house built just for the two of them. It was cozy and perfect for two people who had earned their rest. They spent their days much as they always had together. Teresa gardened and quilted and played with great-grandchildren. Benjamin worked with the horses, his first love, teaching the young ones to ride. In the evenings, they sat on their porch and watched the sun set over the land they had built their life on. On a warm June evening in 1910, as they sat watching the fireflies come out, Teresa suddenly said, "I am so glad you said yes." "Yes to what?" when I asked if I could help. "You could have said no. You could have been too proud or too stubborn to accept help from a stranger. But you said yes, and it changed both our lives." Benjamin took her hand, noting how fragile it had become, the bones prominent under papery skin. "Saying yes to you was the easiest decision I ever made. Well, maybe the second easiest. Asking you to marry me was the easiest." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching the stars come out one by one. The sounds of the ranch surrounded them, cattle lowing in the distance, horses nickering in the barn, the creek babbling along its path. "This is perfect," Teresa said softly. "This moment right here. Everything I could ever want." "Me too," Benjamin agreed. "Everything I could ever want is right here." They went to bed that night as they had every night for 34 years, wrapped in each other's arms. Teresa fell asleep first, her breathing even and peaceful. Benjamin lay awake a while longer, studying her face in the moonlight that filtered through the window. She was older now, her face lined with the years they had lived together, but to him, she was still the beautiful woman who had asked if she could help all those years ago. She was still the miracle that had saved his family. "I love you," he whispered, even though she was asleep. "Thank you for my life." In the morning, Teresa did not wake up. She had passed peacefully in her sleep, her hand still in Benjamin's, a slight smile on her face. The grief was overwhelming. Benjamin had known this day would come eventually, but knowing did not make it easier. He had already lost Sarah. Now he had lost Teresa too. The two great loves of his life, both gone too soon. But even in his grief, Benjamin recognized the blessing. Teresa had not suffered. She had lived a full, rich life and passed peacefully, exactly as she would have wanted. And she had given him 34 years of happiness, helped him raise his daughters, given him 3 more children, and built a legacy that would last generations. The funeral was enormous. Teresa had touched so many lives as a teacher and as a mother and grandmother. Former students, now grown with children of their own, came to pay their respects. The entire town turned out, along with family from across the territory. Samuel delivered the eulogy, his voice strong despite his tears. "My mother was not the woman who gave birth to me, but she was every bit my mother. She taught me, loved me, shaped me into the man I am today. But more than that, she saved my father. She saved all of us. Our family exists because a kind schoolteacher asked, 'May I help you?' and meant it with her whole heart." Benjamin wept openly, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. They held him up, literally and figuratively, supporting him through the hardest day of his life. In the days and weeks that followed, Benjamin struggled. The house was too quiet without Teresa. Every corner held memories of her. He found himself talking to her sometimes, out loud, telling her about his day as he always had. Emma came to stay with him for a while, worried about leaving him alone. "Papa, maybe you should come live with one of us. You should not be here by yourself." "This is my home," Benjamin said firmly. "Mine and Teresa's. I cannot leave it. But Papa." "I will be all right, sweetheart." I have my children and grandchildren visiting all the time. I have the ranch, though Samuel runs it now. I have my memories. I will be all right. And slowly he was. The grief did not go away, but it became something he could carry, just as he had learned to carry the grief of losing Sarah. He took comfort in the family Teresa had helped him raise, in the legacy they had built together. One afternoon, Benjamin rode out to the creek, to the spot where he had proposed to Teresa all those years ago. He sat on the bank, watching the water flow, and he felt their presence. Both of them, Sarah and Teresa, the two women who had shaped his life. "I hope I made you both proud," he said to the wind. "I tried my best to love well, to raise our children well, to build something that would last. I hope I succeeded." He could almost hear Teresa's voice in his ear. "You did, my love. You did." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Benjamin felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. His life had been marked by loss, but it had been defined by love. He had been given not one but two chances at happiness, and he had seized both of them. The ranch would go on. The family would continue. The love he and Sarah and Teresa had planted would grow in their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, spreading out like roots from a great tree. Benjamin stood, his body protesting the movement, and made his way back to his horse. As he rode slowly back to the house, he noticed Samuel waiting for him on the porch. "I was getting worried, Papa. You have been gone for hours." "I was saying goodbye," Benjamin explained, "to your mother." "Both your mothers, really?" Samuel helped him down from the horse. "Are you all right?" "Yes, son, I am all right. More than all right, actually. I am at peace." They walked into the house together, and Benjamin saw that Samuel had brought his family. The little house was suddenly full of noise and laughter, children running around, the smell of dinner cooking. This was what Teresa would have wanted, Benjamin realized. Not for him to mourn alone, but to be surrounded by family, by life, by the love they had created together. That evening, with his grandchildren playing at his feet and Samuel's wife fussing over dinner, Benjamin felt Teresa's presence more strongly than he had since she died. She was in the quilt draped over his chair, the one she had made him years ago. She was in the recipes being used to make dinner. She was in the gentle way Samuel's wife corrected the children, using the same patient tone Teresa had always used. Love does not end. It just changes form. Mary had been right. Teresa had been right. The love they shared was not gone. It lived on in 1,000 small ways, woven into the fabric of their family. Benjamin lived for another 5 years, surrounded by family and surrounded by love. He saw his great-grandchildren grow, saw the ranch continue to prosper, saw his children become elders themselves. On a cold December morning in 1915, Benjamin Wright passed away in his sleep at the age of 75. He died in the bed he had shared with Teresa, in the house they had built together, on the land they had made a home. At his funeral, the family gathered once more. 4 of his original 5 daughters were there, along with Samuel, Sarah, and James. The grandchildren and great-grandchildren filled the church to overflowing. Young Benjamin, Mary's son, gave the eulogy as he had for his grandmother years before. "My grandfather was a remarkable man, not because he did extraordinary things, but because he loved extraordinarily well. He lost his first wife and found the strength to go on for his daughters. He accepted help from a stranger and found love again. He built a ranch and a family and a legacy. But most of all, he showed us that love is the answer to everything. Love in the face of loss, love through hardship, love that lasts beyond death itself." Benjamin Wright was buried between his 2 wives, Sarah on one side and Teresa on the other. The headstone reads simply, "Beloved husband and father, he loved well." The ranch continued for generations, passing from Samuel to his children to theirs. The story of Benjamin and Teresa became family legend, told and retold at gatherings, a reminder that love could be found in the darkest times, that second chances were real, that family was everything. And in Shoshone City, Wyoming, there was a small plaque placed at the schoolhouse, commemorating Teresa James Wright, the teacher who had asked, "May I help you?" and changed everything. The words on the plaque captured the essence of what she had done. She saw a need and responded with love. She saw a broken family and helped make it whole. She saw a man drowning in grief and threw him a lifeline. In doing so, she found her own happiness and built a legacy that lives on in the hearts of all who knew her. The story of the widowed cowboy and the schoolteacher became woven into the fabric of Shoshone City's history. A reminder that, in the harsh landscape of the Wild West, love and compassion were the greatest forces of all. Years turned into decades, and the Wright family tree continued to grow and spread. They became ranchers and teachers, artists and politicians, doctors and lawyers. But they all carried the lesson their ancestors had taught them. That love was worth the risk, that family was worth the effort, and that helping someone when they needed it most could change the course of history. And somewhere, beyond the veil of death, Benjamin and Teresa were together again, watching over the family they had built, proud of the legacy they had left behind, forever grateful for that first moment when a kind woman had seen a struggling man and asked 4 simple words that changed everything. "May I help you?"